Hello.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the SWAN Pricing Show. My name is Filip Fucic. I'm a pricing mentor.
And I'm Filip Zolota. I am the CEO and the owner of Growth Marketing Agency Maloya. Welcome.
Welcome indeed. Today, we're going to talk about, well, a good way to prioritize your projects. So, very rarely is the case that somebody who has a SWAN business, so somebody's selling expertise-based services as opposed to what we call duck businesses, which is commoditized services, is going to offer just one thing, and even more rarely is going to be plainly clear which one from the ones that you're offering are actually more profitable, because in commoditized services, project is a project which consists of a number of hours or number of of space or whatever, and that's it. It's easier, it's more straightforward, and people don't usually get into oh, I really like this, so I'm going to charge you less. And this happens in the SWAN space, right? So I'm not against, as a policy, for me or my clients, I'm not against doing something that you like and charging less for it, if that's intentionally what you're doing. So that's fine. So if you say, I would rather work 50 hours a week doing this because I like it, or because it's challenging, or because it's interesting, then 30 hours a week doing something that I don't like that much, that's boring, that I already know really well how to do, that's okay if that's your decision, because that can also be revoked at any time, because you made it consciously. And if something happens and you say, okay, now I need the extra free time or whatever, and I'm switching to that for the next 6 months, 2 years, doesn't really matter. So that's fine. But being able to compare it is valuable, right? What would you also say is the difference between the commoditized and the non-commoditized space when it comes to comparing projects?
It's understanding the initial scope of the activities and time, the resources necessary to deploy the solution, whatever you're doing for a respectable client and customer, and understand from the initial stage what is the actual and full scope engagement. Because quite often what is happening, people are overly enthusiastic in terms of the approach and doing some specific project, which is later on becoming a problem for them. So that is something which needs to be addressed and managed properly at the initial stage. And as you mentioned, sometimes people are being optimistic, especially something is challenging for them. They're feeling more passionate about doing something, but in the same time, they need to take care of the scope of the activities and responsibilities which will be put on their table, so they can properly address every case and scenario and deploy on the top level their service and the results they said that they will generate through that engagement.
Okay, yes. And while we're on the subject, apart from getting all of the, no, let's put it like this. Another difference between the commoditized and non-commoditized service space is that it's fairly simpler to compare projects in the commoditized space.
Yeah.
In the non-commoditized space, you have things like books, so they take a heck of a long time to get to the market, but then they don't really take that much to sell. So it's much tougher to see the profitability of a book. because you might use it to sell other products, or you might get other work by people reading the book or hearing about the book, or the book secures you a place on some podcast, which generates, so the profitability of the book is harder to assess. A simpler example would be courses. Because a singular course could be aided in sales by existence of other courses. Just like any other offer, people prefer to have more than one. And then the best-selling one should probably cover the other ones, the effort going into the other ones as well, because it's not, it wouldn't be what it is if there weren't the others. Just like with offers, sometimes you make an offer that you know that most people are not going to take, but it makes the other offers more effective in comparison, right? So I think it's genuinely more difficult to do. Now, as much as I don't really like or advocate of using a going rate, let's say, we talked about it, so an hourly rate, not a going rate, an hourly rate, for discussing things with clients, I do use it for internal purposes. Absolutely. So okay, I get approximately 50 somethings for this, and 70 for that, and 210 for that. Well, that 210 one is harder to get. But if I have in front of me a client that would benefit from basically anything, and they want to start somewhere, and they're probably going to buy everything that they actually need, which one do I recommend first if their situation doesn't really call for this or that, which is rare, but it happens. So I will say, okay, let's do the 210 one. Because of course it has to fit the client, otherwise I wouldn't offer it. But if I know that if I don't do this, I would rather know that I'm consciously not doing this, because yes, this is more profitable, but this is better for the client, or this is better for the initial period, or whatever. I would like to know this, right? I would like to know this. So one thing that I use to compare internally the profitability is the hourly rate, the effective hourly rate, and the other is the conversion rates. So that one that pays 210, it's harder to find people who are immediately interested to it. It's harder to explain. The conversion rates are simply not that great. So I have a couple of things which I regularly mention, and then I have a couple of offers that I don't mention at all, but sometimes I offer it if it exactly fits the situation. So what do you use?
Yeah, definitely. We have, no matter we are talking about my consulting practice or the growth and any of other my ventures and activities, we always have fully productized services in our offer. There are some of the services which we call flagship services. They are those with the most value, optimal, and set up optimally for specific scenario, depending on the industry, etc., etc., etc. But also in your repository, you have a stack which is definitely a good option for some respectable and kind of special cases. Also, what I wanted to emphasize here, no matter the company is a one-man band, two-man band, three-man band, or you have 100 employees, business owners quite often, if they are solopreneurs, look at the perspective of conducting business and being paid for their work. This is full profit. Now you need to see yourself as a resource in your organization, which has some specific frame of time dedicated, as you mentioned, for this specific activity, for this client, for that client. so you can properly address, organize, and optimize your time. It's a clear and clean time management, which will be definitely helping you conduct and do your business more profitably by default. That is something which I wanted to add on as the important parameter, simply to be aware of it, especially in the solopreneurship as a business model.
And what happens if they don't do that?
What is happening? They are being, they have too much projects on the table, being late with the activities, with the deployment, and from financial perspective, none of those activities are profitable enough, because they clog themselves with so many obligations, and they're doing practically nothing. The result is being left behind, and nothing is happening. And that can work only for a slight moment until they clean the table. But it's important to switch the paradigm and the approach, because long term it's impossible to run that business, no matter you're a one-man band or you have no matter the number of employees or contractors in your team. And that is where lies the important parameter, and that is prioritization of the client, the perspective, and always being aware of the resources you have on the table and how much time you've dedicated for your respectable clients. The other thing, what is happening, as mentioned previously at the start of our today's conversation, is the being overly optimistic, enthusiastic about some respectable client because it's challenging, it's cool, until you see how much time, effort, and overall time consumption for that respectable client is actually happening. And initially you saw that as potentially highly profitable business until you put the numbers on the table, make the calculation, and see truly what is happening with the project and its requirements.
Yeah. So you know, that's a cool project. It will bring us 50,000 of, you know, whatever. And yes. And what exactly are we really going to have to do in order to do it correctly, right? Because not do what you cannot do in such a situation is get in the middle of it, work out, oh, I'm actually losing money, I could be doing something else, and say, oh, you know, this is not profitable, sorry, goodbye. I mean, you can do it once.
By the way, sorry for interruption, but that helped me remind, I heard one specific scenario similar to that. One development company simply at the half of the project said, this is not profitable enough for me, for us, sorry, bye. And the client was, what? Surely they were after that situation, simply bad words are moving faster overall in the communication channel. So after that, that specific company was losing, cumulatively speaking, a lot of potential projects, because prospects and clients heard what they have did on one highly demanding project at the half of the path. So that was a no-go.
I mean, in general, it's very important to know when something is a low profit thing, not in theory but in practice, because running a low profit program means that you will be overworked, because the low profit means that you have to have a lot of them, and they don't grow on trees. So when you get when you get a chance to get a new client, you'll usually take a new client, because you know you'll sleep when you're dead. I've been there, and then the overall quality starts to drop. and running a higher, so a better percentage of higher profit projects allows you to, eat, as they say, the losses on a single project and still have a good year.
Exactly.
So I have a fixed price, but not a fixed engagement. So sometimes the engagement goes on for longer. The thing is, I don't really care if I lose money on 2 or 3 projects a year, because there's 40 other projects that will be profitable. So I can do the professional thing and suck it up and say, okay, I'm going to finish this job and produce the result, and by this date I can say whomever I took on as a client, I helped. And not all of them were extremely profitable to me, and a couple of them are really not, but it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. I still had good years. So when you limit the downside, you also limit the upside. So I think it's better to have a 90% chance of returning good profit and 10% chance of losing money than have a 100% chance of getting a low profit feedback because of all. And people ask, okay, what do you mean? Why does it have to be, why is the upside limited to with a limited downside? Because profit inherently is directly connected to the amount of risk that you take. So if you lower the risk, you lower the profits. So a good example would be an Uber driver, right? If he was a regular taxi, not belonging to any organization, he could roam around the streets searching for somebody hailing a cab, which would lose him a lot of time and fuel and whatever. But apart from fees and stuff, which was always usual, all of the profits go to him or his partners in the car. Doesn't really matter, right? If he signs up on to Uber, then finding clients is not that much of a problem. They find you don't have to find them, so you considerably cut on the risk. So it's now considerably less. However, all of the profits basically go to the company.
Yeah.
So because of the nature of the market, because of the nature of risk, if you limit your downside, you're somehow probably limiting your upside as well.
Yeah.
And of course, risk needs to be managed. But getting to 100%, firstly, it's never 100%, and everybody knows that. But getting as close to 100% risk-free is not really the best goal, I think, because you then come to completely unprofessional solutions like, well, if this is not profitable for us, we're cutting and leaving, and that limits your profitability and your ability to make revenue in that industry for a long time, right?
Yeah. You had interesting situation when COVID hit.
Yeah.
The initial drive of a big number of people and businesses were cutting prices. Why? You need to survive. If you're cutting your prices, you're cutting your profit margin, redundancy, and all other components of the pricing structure. How you are expecting your company to survive that specific, very challenging time and situation?
Do you know anybody that fared better after that? So they cut prices and that it saved their business. I don't. Do you?
No.
So what I've seen is people cutting prices and then simply making less money. That's it.
And they created their new normal, simply having smaller price. So they have downgraded the prices of their expertise or whatever type of the services, simply providing a lower price, and from that point on going up for some of them was very challenging. And I had discussion with my colleagues, friends, and partners who did that. It was impossible. They were losing those clients later on. They lowered the price, help and supported their respectable clients. And after that, when they ask, okay, now the situation is better, can we set up the frame as it was before? No, 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 no. And simply that business partnership was simply went down the toilet, and that's it.
We should talk about discounts some more, because we can always talk about that.
Yeah.
So my point was, because SWAN businesses, expertise-based pricing, is by and large what the economists call inelastic, which means that they react less than you would think. So if you raise the price 20%, you're not going to lose 20% of people. Of course, it has limitations. Everything has limitations, but by and large, that's not going to happen. But it works the other way around as well. You drop your price 30%, you're not going to get 30% more people.
Yeah.
You might get none.
Exactly.
So it reacts less than you think.
Yeah.
In both ways. So discounts, which is, you know, the go-to thing in the duck world to increase the revenue, because you increase the amount bought from you, it mostly falls flat on its face when tried in the SWAN world.
Absolutely.
Right. Getting back on track. So we addressed that prioritization is important, because then you can choose, then you can make decisions once you know the relative profitability of your things, and maybe ideally the conversion rates as well. Maybe something else that I haven't mentioned, I'm not sure.
You mentioned what I also wanted to emphasize in some moment, we can just practically repeat it. The fact that sometimes you will go in the engagement with a lower profit margin for the sake of the future, because you see potential and you have adequate control, meaning you have a scepter of power to control that respectable case scenario and engagement, and you cannot necessarily upsell your service, but extend the engagement, which is a benefit for you and your clients. So both sides are equally or near equally satisfied in that terms. And from the perspective of long-term partnerships and longevity, that is the desired state.
That's also a good you know, SWAN duck difference, right? In the duck world, in the commoditized world, things rarely have big margins, because there's a lot of competition. It's commoditized, so small margins mean that they have to focus on the now. They have to focus on the next month or two. Bigger margins, better profitability, basically means that you can afford to have longer engagement windows in general. So, you know, yeah, I usually make good money on a client in year 3. Yeah. Right? And that's fine. And that's fine. I can most probably sleep easy until then. I mean, I don't know anybody who is beyond market risk, but it's not the same thing as you know, some winery that needs it, you know, 3% margin, and it's you know, barely scraping by. It's not the same thing at all. So yeah, the ability to extend the window and be the most profitable at the very moment that you're doing the most help to a client. That's really a really good thing to do. Okay. Anything else that you wanted to talk about on the account of projects profitability and prioritization? Jesus.
Yeah, at this point now, I think we cover pretty much a good scope there. Yeah.
Cool. So then, where can people find you, Philip?
Thanks. People can find me on LinkedIn by default, and also on my agency page, moyo.agency, and the page of my consultancy practice, philipzolota.com.
People can find me on LinkedIn for sure, and on my web page, fearless-pricing.com. Thank you, everybody. Hope this was useful, and see you next time.
See you. Take care. Bye.